Yeah, that's the one we did right.
Yeah.
I always
Vicky,
tell
yeah.
Gail, well, that was the first one. That was with Richard Chamberlain. You know, you never knew who was going to be on the show, so you had to write for people that weren't known for being funny. So they
Hold it. Richard Chamberlain was not known for being funny?
Not at the time.
Okay.
He got funny.
Jack Palance, I think he left with his chair.
We did that sketch. We did a Svengali sketch for
Wow.
Jack Palance. That was before he mastered the one-arm push-up.
One of my
But
bad
it
deals
was-
was
yes,
the
but
Jack Palance variety show was not good for me.
No, it didn't.
But we were on Tim Conway, right? About
Yes,
how he
indeed.
added to what was written. And the first, during the dress rehearsal, which was taped,
Yes.
he did what was written on the page, and then he
Went crazy.
Then he went crazy.
To this day,
and
we argue with
elaborated.
Tim because we say, we didn't tell you could do it all over the country, because him and Harvey
The
would
dentist
tour and
sketch.
do
That's right,
it.
yes.
So we always tease him about, you don't have the rights to that.
But
We got $500, by the way.
Oh, that was the buyout finally, $500.
Now let's talk a little bit about Harvey.
Oh my God, he's
Harvey
so
Brilliant.
was
brilliant.
the all-purpose utility ball player, and could do and did do anything and everything, including Mother Marcus.
Yes.
You
Mother
went-
Marcus, was that?
It makes me cry thinking about him. He's so
Incredible. Yes.
incredible.
Yeah.
Well, we looked forward to if he was doing something like Mother Marcus, or if Tim went on a thing. You would sit in there and just go,
wouldn't know what would
and
happen,
enjoy it, you know?
Even the dentist sketch to this day, I've seen it 45 times. It's still funny.
Which
When you
one?
wa- The dentist
Yeah,
sketch.
yeah.
remember that.
You watch it again and again.
$500.
That's funny if we charged Arnie for watching. But
I have been paying money, yeah. Residuals, yes.
he would have been Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin. You know, we always say that. Because he's really one of the funniest men alive.
Yes.
And then Vicky had quite
Absolutely.
a
Vicky
run.
was a surprise. Vicky was
Yeah.
the surprise that what she could do and what she turned into.
She wrote Carol a letter that she was performing in a high school play. And Joe and Carol went to see it, and she looked a little like Carol, to play her sister. She came on.
Yep.
The first year was a little iffy. They weren't sure how much to give her. Then she broke loose.
blossomed.
Yeah.
She became Mama.
Yes.
In Mama's Family, the Dick Clare and Jenna McMahon. We should also mention the writers who aren't here. Don Hinckley,
Right.
Saul
Oh, yeah.
Turtle, Stan Burns and Mike Marmer.
Uh,
God, they were funny.
Our long history started at Julian Carroll at Carnegie Hall, 1962. From that, I was asked to do the Gary Moore Show. Carroll was the star of the Gary Moore Show. And just things progressed all along through the years, and finally the Carol Burnett Show itself. And I was around, available, and through the choreographer Ernie Flatt, and of course she knew me, and she said yes, and I got to do the job. All 11 years. How about that? Now, I don't want to lie completely. I was on and off, but I did the entire 11-year series. What happened was that I would go out like with Mitzi Gaynor for her nightclub act, and there was always a spot for me when I was through with that. I'd come back and they'd put me back on the show. So technically I was there for 11 years. And the last couple of years I was the assistant choreographer, which was great, but they allowed me to be in the sketches. You know, which was very kind of Carol to let me do that, and so I could do both things. So it was fun. I could have seen her on the Ed Sullivan Show when she did her famous "I made a fool of myself over John Foster Dulles," but I knew who she was, and then of course the Gary Moore Show. Yes, I did know. You know, and Marion Lauren. Wow, Durward Kirby. That was incredible show. Well, I saw the original Broadway show, so I was there to see that on Broadway, and you know, which she was fabulous in. Later on, when she did TV special of it, I was unavailable for that, but I remember coming to the taping and watching it. You know, saying, well, why wasn't I in that too? You know, can't be in everything, but which, you know, that was great. We did Calamity Jane together, and she was a great Calamity Jane. Did that one summer in Dallas and then around, I think, and then brought it back to New York, and we filmed a TV special of it, which was great. Carol was good at saying, and now the Ernie Flatt dancers. And it was just us. No stars, no Carol, no Vicki, and anybody else. It was just the dancers, and she'd give us that opportunity of dancing. It was wonderful. You look at his costumes and the beading work and the stuff he's done, the sequins and all those dancers and singers and everything. We don't know how he got it done. Speaking about Mackie, I just went in my head. He got the job with Carol because he was Mitzi Gaynor's designer for our act. And Carol and Joe, her husband at that time, would come to see the nightclub act. And he goes, who does your costumes? Because he was like so crazy. And later on hired him for the show. And he was, as Carol has said many, many times, he was a big part of making sketches work because of the look of the costumes. When you're a comic like her, I mean, she'd walk into a door, into a wall and everything, you know, you kind of learn that. And you learn how to protect yourself, you know. And people who go, oh, I hit my head, you know, she knows how to do stuff like that. It's great. So, and she would fall down, never hurt herself. And being a dancer, and I was acrobatic, so I was always getting the punch, and I'd boom, you know, fall over, do a trick or something, you know. So you kind of learn how to do that. In fact, in the sketch Torchy Song, I trip over her and I do a Brody, as you call it, you know, fall over her leg. So yeah, and she's always able to do that and wanting to do that, and she's careful, you know. She knows how to take the fall, you know. There's an honesty that comes out. You can't fake that. It's a real thing. It's a real person. And I'd like to see her do more serious acting. You know, she's just done a few things, you know, and Friendly Fire, of course, I think that's the most dramatic I think she's ever done. But she is comedy, you know. She's fun and as I say, she's sincere and it comes from her heart and it's all honest. To watch him as a study in character studies, you know, he could be anybody, you know, and he had the accents and silly, you know, and he played the drag. He was just not afraid to do anything, not afraid, you know. Some people would pull back and say, oh no, but he'd be Mama whoever, you know, with the big boobies and the fairies in the sketches with the Pointer Sisters, you know. He was fairy godmother. Wonderful, just wonderful. On the early shows that you're going to see, Tim came on the show as just a guest, you know, and then she saw, ooh, this is gold, you know, and we're going to hire him. Vicki came on the show, you know, as this little teenager, not knowing anything, you know, and what a schooling she got. You know, this has come out in other interviews, you know, that Carol has done, and Vicki claims it too, that her greatest teachers were Carol and Harvey and Tim, and she didn't know how to do it wrong. You know, and they all helped her and coached her, and she picked it up. You have to pick it up. I mean, so let's say she wasn't dumb in that. And the dancing the same way, you know, and she did a lot of very good heavy dancing. And Lyle Wagner, he was the beauty from the very beginning, and the gorgeous guy that Carol would just ooze and drool over. And again, I don't want to put him down, but I don't think he had a lot of acting, sketch working and everything before. He was just a beauty. Well, by the time he came on the show, like Vicki, with Harvey there and everything, and Carol, he became a terrific sketch person. And he was very funny and kind of opposite of all that good looks and everything. He played these crazy kind of guys, you know. He did a great job. Later on, put his money to good use because he bought all the Star Wagons that the movie people use now. And even in my other jobs, I've even hired his wagons to do other things. So good for him. We'd watch it because it was spontaneous, perfectly on record. And there was no plants in the audience, you know. And a couple times, my mother, bless her heart, she's gone now, but she would get to come see the show and she'd sit in the first row and there were some questions and answers and I still see her head, you know, and it was fun. The early shows, I think they are growing pains, you know. They were the early experimental things and they were always good, but you know, if you really examine them, I think you can see growth coming along, you know. And we're talking about Carol, that was the period of the mod look. And Bob Mackie was great. So there were the chain link dresses for them, always very short, and the ultra short hair, that, haircut that they got, and the big eyelashes, and I don't know, what do we call them now? The Liza Minnelli lashes or whatever. They're as big up as they were down, and so those are fun. And we were all doing the new dances and the discos and all that, and the big high heels that we all had to wear. I don't know how we got through all that, but we did. So those are going to be the early fun things to see on this series. I don't remember the first kind of sketches. Well, she knew I could act and I could tell jokes and do things from coming to see the Mitzi Gaynor show, because we did a lot of burlesque, and the whole act was done with sketches, and so I had lines to do and everything, and so she knew I was competent in doing that. It was not too long ago, I saw an old sketch, and I thought, oh, I've never seen this before. And then I popped up from behind the sofa in a big Indian headdress. I don't remember being in it, But they put me in sketches, and I'd sit with Harvey and Tim, and one great sketch, but it didn't talk, was a flower shop with just Carol, Tim, and myself, and I played the living plant. And working with Tim, he's so, you think he's goofy and crazy and everything, and everything is planned and perfect, and we work things out, and you give a little bit, and he takes it, or he would do something, and I would add to it, and it worked out beautifully. And I couldn't be more proud. I got audio credit at the end of the show. The Plant, played by Randy Doney. So so there were sketches, and always one-liners or something, and I played a cop and a cowboy and a fireman. It just went on and on, all the little characters that we did all the time, and happy to do so. Ken and Mitzi Welch, fabulous writers. I'm heartbroken we've lost Mitzi now. They're both so terrific, and of course Ken really came from the Gary Moore Show, and Mitzi was there, maybe in the background, we don't know, but certainly, she was also Carol's understudy in Once Upon a Mattress, or a standby. So there's a long association. Ken wrote special material for her when she was at the Blue Note or whatever, when she did her nightclub act. So together they would write all these things, and then we had Artie Melvin and a couple of other people that added to it, but mainly Ken and Mitzi, and these long medleys that they wrote, or the takeoff on movies, because they all loved movies. And Carol was the great foil to be anybody. On Monday, we'd sit down first with the music and learn the words. Also have to say that Carol let the dancers sing along with the singers. A lot of the singers that were not on camera all the time, but they were hired to do the pre-records. And, but they let the dancers sing, oftentimes, on the pre-record, if we did, or live. And so we do that. And then we'd pick out the parts, the choreographer would pick out the parts that we had big dance sections in. So we'd learn those first, and more complicated, and then it would get to be the staging. And if Carol was involved, and she'd be there sometime on Monday, maybe like in the afternoon. So we'd set up, around her, and then when she just would step in, she's so fast. She's so fast, and I always joked about learning a script. She'd go, and she'd put it down, and she knew all the words. That's how we put the musicals together. It wasn't too many things that were like kind of straight dancing things. We did one with Shirley MacLaine and Carol, did a thing about looking in the mirror together. And I got to dance with Shirley, and Don Crichton got to dance with Carol. And we really did a nice dancing. It wasn't comical. It was pretty dancing. We had some stars on, not mentioning any names, that were really not knowing their left foot from the right, but Ernie being the choreographer, and other shows too. Through the years, when I worked with other people, you just put your surrounding people there to guide and hold and lift them and put them around, and so they look like they're dancers of the world, and They're not very adept to doing it, you know. But they are stars, and they have personalities, and they're pretty or whatever, and handsome, and we always get through it, you know. So I don't want to say that. We're there to do it. And when they can do it, Chita Rivera, oh my God, you know, Carol Lawrence, and those kind of people who could really, Shirley MacLaine. We talked about, you know, not stopping the show ever. So when it came to those 2 shows on Friday with the audience, if there was a mistake made, you know, then they had the second show as a backup or vice versa, you know. So, yeah, you know, it always was well rehearsed. And that's the secret of anything. You rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. I'm about to go into auditioning I haven't done in a long time, and I'm at home rehearsing and rehearsing, you know, hoping it goes well. I mean, there were so many, but Gone with the Wind, of course, with Carol with the rod in her costume. Tim, you know, with the dentist. Carol with the horse. There's one of me as a I don't know if I'm Mexican or what I am, a big sombrero, and I'm sitting at a table with Harvey and Tim, and of course Tim's carrying on. And there's just the 3 of us there and trying to, you can see me bobbing, and the sombrero's going like this, you know, trying to hold it still, you know. And people always think that, you know, it's all planned. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Harvey always never knew what was going to happen. Completely undone. Carol the same way, and Vicki and the Mama sketches. Oh my God, you know, and Vicki would come out of saying things that would destroy everybody too, you know. So, and they always wanted to break Carol up, and she, you know, was the hardest one of all to break up. But when she'd go, it was great, and it was accomplished, you know. We made her do it. And we'd, you know, we weren't in the sketches, we'd be in the wings, or we'd sit in the back of the auditorium, you know, and we'd watch because we knew something was going to happen, you know. And so that was always a fun time. Ken Berry was a wonderful musical guest. And when I became the assistant choreographer, you know, so a lot of the stuff was done on me first, you know, and then done a lot of lifts with the girls or something to see if Ken could handle that and everything. Of course, he was a fabulous tap dancer. It was great. And a couple of times I had to step in for some people. Our last show, we did a big number called The Rite of Spring, Stravinsky's Rite of Spring. And there was a popular kind of jazzed up version of it, you know, and we did this big number, and the guys were dressed like Cossacks kind of thing with fur hats on, and the girls were all in red because they were the Firebirds with feathers on and everything. And one of the guys dropped out at the last minute. I don't know if he got sick or something like that, and they went, "You!" And they went, "Me?" So I had to jump in and do his part, you know, and lifting the girls. And so, yeah, sometimes I got stuck having to go back into the show. I think Carol is unique. She's one of a kind, and it's great to copy somebody. And you know, it's a they say a very wonderful compliment to say, "Oh, you sound like this or that," but the original is the original, you know. And even her mentor, Lucy, she's completely different than Lucy. And Lucy loved her, you know, and they had a great relationship together. But Lucy's comedy was so different. She's a different kind of person. And yet Carol could be like Lucy, but different. Slapstick. Got to meet Carol's sister, made me friends with Carol's sister. I got to meet Nanny years ago, the famous Nanny, you know, this one. She was a hoot, you know, she was fun, and she was just Nanny, you know, and sparkly and everything. It wasn't very often, you know, we got to meet her. I think one of Carol's relatives owned an antique store. We got to meet him, and yeah, so we go back a long way. Carol's children, you know, we were there from the birthing of first to the third, and they were always there. They always sat in the audience when they were old enough to be there, and I mean, it was a whole family. And Carol the ship is only piloted from the captain down, you know, and she was the captain, you know, and she set the tone for everything. There wasn't a moment that somebody new came on the show, a new dancer or an extra or something, an extra actor or something, and she'd walk in the door and go right to that person. Hi, I'm Carol Burnett, and who, you know, and then she used your name all through the week, and then knew every cameraman and grip and by name. I ooze too much about her because it's all true. It's wonderful. I'm so glad we had this time together, just to have a laugh or sing a song. Joe Hamilton wrote that song, and it's a whole song, you know, because on our show To Say Goodbye, only half of it. And you know what I haven't seen in a long time? I'd love to see the autograph book. Carol always brought out the autograph book, and the stars signed it, and haven't seen that around for a long time. That would be fun.